All right, guys, excited to have a guest on today. Chris Kirschner from The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Kirschner. Going to talk all things Aaron Judge, Yankees offseason, roster construction, the crazy amount of money that's being spent in baseball right now. Chris, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So obviously, big topic. Aaron Judge is back. He's back. He's hasn't been named captain yet, but I think that's going to be coming up at some point in the near future. Whether the near future is weeks, months, or year, who knows? But it seems like he's slotted to be the guy because now he's got the contract that takes him to be a Yankee for forever. He's the guy, which is great. That's, I think, what the fan base wanted. Is it's what the team needed to do. They had to close this deal. You wrote a really compelling, I think, a really interesting article called "Inside the Yankees' Stressful Day That Led to Aaron Judge's Return." So I'd like to start there actually, and kind of have you just talk a little bit about that, because the things that you covered inside this article I thought were really intriguing. But off the top, what's one of the things coming from that you were surprised to hear, I guess, based on how the day went down?
Well, when John Heyman tweeted Arson Judge is going to the Giants, the Yankees were very confused. They believed that they were still in the race. When that happened, there was panic for about 10 minutes before Heyman clarified that he wasn't, in fact, going to the Giants. But after that, up until the early morning hours Pacific time, this was back during winter meetings, which were in San Diego. But for like the next 12-ish hours, like the Yankees thought they were done. Like they didn't think that he was coming back. They knew that Heyman is a very credible reporter, and he didn't get that from the sky. Like he heard that from somebody. He wouldn't have said it otherwise. Obviously, he jumped the gun, but that's beside the point. But the Yankees, top to bottom, they thought that he was out. They had learned very, very late in the evening that he was flying into San Diego and meeting with a team. That team obviously turned out to be the Padres. Padres had offered, they didn't officially offer, but they were willing to go to $400 million. And at that time, when it seemed like he was slipping away from them, Aaron Boone got on the phone with Judge. Both of them have a close relationship with the other one. When Boone got off the phone with Judge, even at that point, Boone said that he wasn't really sure if he was coming back. And then Hal Steinbrenner, who was in Italy vacationing at the time, he jumped on the phone with Judge, asked him straight up, like, do you want to be a Yankee? Judge, like, throughout the process, even when he was talking with other teams, Padres that on that final day, and then the Giants throughout, he expressly said throughout the process that he did want to be a Yankee. He said it publicly to the media and then privately, because sometimes it's different. Sometimes guys say two different things publicly and privately, but even privately, he was saying that he wanted to be a Yankee. The Giants at the time were in at around $360 million, which is obviously what he ended up signing for. But once Hal, was willing to match the Giants' offer at $360 million, it was a done deal, and Judge was a Yankee. But I was in San Diego for winter meetings, and I think around like 1 a.m., I was drunk. Another Yankees person was drunk. But I saw him in the lobby.
Was it John Heyman?
It was not John Heyman.
Okay.
John was around.
Yeah.
But I saw the Yankees official and like, how's it going? And then like he just like stormed off. It was like a pretty effing stressful day. Again, like they didn't think that he was coming back until like the literal last second before it was done. And obviously everything is great now. He's going to be a Yankee for life, as you said.
That hearing that is a little crazy to me, to be honest. It's because you would think throughout this process, and I understand, I think the way that it went down before the season started was very strange. And, reading that Time article and hearing more about this, Brian Cashman had been talking about, hey, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. Judge, Cashman, Yankees, Cashman, and Judge, all on the same page with how those negotiations went down, what was being released, all of those things. And when you read the Time article, you see otherwise, that Judge is, was taken aback by the way that it was handled and was not happy with. And that gives you flashbacks of, the Jeter contract and when things, how things, matriculated with the communications between those two. That's where it takes me back. And someone's just not telling the truth. But at the same time, Judge knew that he had to have known that they were going to counter. That was very clear. This was like, give us the opportunity to match or beat or whatnot. Just give us the opportunity to do that. So I always thought that was understood with Judge's camp and with the Yankees camp. So if that was understood, why were the Yankees freaking out so much, understanding that, they should have felt good if the relationship had gone the way that they had said it was, that Aaron and his camp would have come back after an offer from the Giants and it wouldn't have just been accepted. So that's what's confusing me, I guess, is that there seems to be a breakdown in communication between the Judge camp and the Yankees at some point. And, when did that happen and how did that happen? Because, something this big of a deal to the franchise, the fans, the individual, people involved, you would think that would be as tight as humanly possible.
Yeah, well, I have an answer for that. Judge's camp never told the Yankees that they were going to be given the final chance of matching whatever offer he got. If he got, I don't know, $500 million from the Kansas City Royals, and he decided to take it, it was never expressly told to the Yankees that you will have the final opportunity to match. That's why they were freaking out, because they thought, well, if he has $400 million on the table,
right,
he might just take it and we don't have any opportunity to have our final words. That's why everybody was getting on the phone and trying to hey, we love you, we want you, we want you. That's why it was almost a panicked state from everybody inside the organization, because they weren't told that they were going to have the final opportunity to match. In regards to Cashman revealing the offer, I wasn't covering the team at the time. I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up a Yankees fan, so I remember watching that press conference before opening day. But since I've started covering the team in August, even talking to people behind the scenes in these past few months, from my understanding, it was explicitly told to Paige Odell, Aaron Judge's agent, the week prior to opening day, we are going to tell the public about the offer. We want to be as transparent as possible. We want to make it clear that we are trying to re-sign the most popular player since Derek Jeter. To Cashman's, I guess, bewilderment is the fact that these conversations did happen. Maybe they did not happen between Paige and Aaron, and maybe that's why Aaron was confused about why it was released. Cashman doesn't know. Nobody in the Yankees knows. They were, and that's why they were very confused about the Time article about Judge saying he was taken aback or caught off guard by the fact that it was released publicly, because these conversations did happen, at least according to the Yankees. And I know for a fact that the conversation did happen. But between whether it happened between Paige and Aaron, I have no idea. So when they saw the comments in the Time story, when they saw that he had dreamt about playing for the Giants, this article comes out during winter meetings, which is obviously a pivotal point in the offseason. I think Aaron and his camp played free agency perfectly.
I think you're right.
To be honest with you. The video comes out during Thanksgiving. I think it was Thanksgiving, of him walking off the plane and saying oh, why are you in San Francisco?
Yeah, it was TMZ Judge, or something caught him.
Right there. And Judge winks at the camera, and Judge is an extremely private guy.
Mm-hmm.
extremely private. I thought that I thought it was a performance act. And then the Times story drops like during winter meetings. These quotes come out like, man, like maybe he's actually thinking about leaving San Francisco. In the end, Judge and his camp had all of the leverage in the world. He hit 62 home runs. He is a cash cow for the Yankees. He is the number one marketing guy in baseball. You can't lose someone like that, especially if you're the Yankees, who are so obviously devoted to their history. You can't lose someone who is very likely going to end up in Monument Park one day and is very likely going to end up in Cooperstown. Like, you don't want that guy having 9 years of his career in San Francisco and he goes into the Hall of Fame with a Giants cap on his plaque. So like you have to, if you're the Yankees, like you have no choice. You have like 9 years it's a long time for someone who's had several injuries, a long time for someone who we haven't seen before at his size perform well. You know, he's on the wrong side of 30. But if he's as good of a player as he's been, you know, through 35-ish, 36, then that's the price to pay to get, you know, 5-6 years of like really, really good performance. And you have to maximize that window to, you know, win a title, which they haven't done so far.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I was talking about this after I think it was 2017 when they put in the judges' chambers. As soon as they put in the judges' chambers, I was like, you lost all of your leverage just now. Just now, you lost all of your leverage come this contract negotiation, because that type of gimmicky stuff doesn't happen with the New York Yankees. It doesn't happen at Yankee Stadium, and it did happen. And when the fan base is this deep into it, you know, a talking point that I kept bringing up about the contract is like, at what point, and does it even exist, is the delta between any other team's contract offer and what the Yankees would need to put on the table? At what point does that delta become too big? And I don't think it does, because of all the things that you just said, because of the legacy piece, because of the Yankees off the field, because of the, you know, the capabilities to make money in the marketing side. I don't think it would have been a number too big, to be honest. I think they were pot committed. They had to do this. And from what you're saying, it sounds the Yankees did make it clear that they would, if there was another offer, that they would like to be talking to the camp again and say, you know, either match it, beat it, or whatnot. But what you're saying is that the judge camp never really reciprocated that intent to give, you know, the ability to do that. But the Yankees were pot committed. They had to be. They really did. They had to be. So I think the whole fact that this thing went down the way it did is you're right. Judge's camp was definitely playing this nice. Like that timepiece coming out when it did, that's not a coincidence. You know, the things that were probably said in there, probably not a coincidence, you know, making sure that the pot was being stirred and he was really making people sweat a little bit. So, I mean, I appreciate that, to be honest. Like, I appreciate the way that he did it. I appreciate the way that he took control into his own hands after the season that he had.
And to add on to that is like he played it perfectly, but then even better is the fact that the Padres were willing to go 10 years and 400 million. So now like the fan base is going to be like, wow, like this guy is extremely loyal. He got a 9-year deal with us and he left $40 million on the table. He's extremely loyal. So like, again, it was everything with it is perfect from Judge's side. And I mean, like the Yankees had to do what they had to do. Like Hal Steinbrenner was like, you know, screaming from the mountains that like we are going to re-sign this guy pretty much no matter what. So if there was a scale, like a leverage scale, it was at 100 for Judge and 0 for the Yankees, because like they just had to do whatever they needed to do, and this is what they had to do. 9 years, 360 million, and now he's the highest paid player in the sport.
So do you think that the Giants were ever like a true consideration for Judge in the camp, or they were really just being used? And the story that went along with the Giants and Aaron Judge, obviously in that article, was just like doubling down on, hey, I will leave. I will go. This is the place that I've been dreaming about as a kid. It does seem very orchestrated. But I'm wondering if you had a sense that it was actually real.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll ever know like the full story, because I mean, just speaking from speaking with Giants people at winter meetings, like they were very much led to believe that he was very interested in signing with them. None of his actions, none of the conversations they felt were fake or forced. But again, like it's free agency and like a player's trying to get as much money as possible. I think anybody can say whatever another team wants to hear. So I think like I don't know if we'll ever know like the full truth. Like yes, the Giants were they were led to believe that they were very much in the race and very much had a chance. The Yankees felt like the Giants had a chance and they felt like they were very much in the race. But as far as like what was in Aaron's head, he's very calculated when it comes to speaking publicly, especially with the media. So I'm when he ends up having his press conference to announce the deal, I still don't know when that is exactly going to be. I'm very interested in hearing like how he answers the question which he's going to be asked, like how seriously were you considering other teams? I'm sure he's already planned how he's going to answer that question, but as far as like if we'll ever know the truth, I have no idea.
No, we're gonna have to wait 20 years for the 30 for 30, just like Jeter did. I mean, he's Jeter 2.0.
Exactly.
He
exactly.
whether they have a relationship or not, at this point, he's clearly watched and studied the way that Derek Jeter handled being in New York, handled with the media, because there are even just the way that the rhythm and the way that they talk is similar. So you see a lot of things that are coinciding. So yeah, 20 years from now, when there's a documentary made about Aaron Judge, hopefully we're talking about a couple championships. Maybe then we'll find out the true story when the book. All right. So obviously the Giants had another a plan B here. We saw Carlos Correa just signed a 13-year deal. Massive. We're seeing this across baseball now. Correa 13, Bogarts 11, Turner 11. You go back to Trout and Bryce Harper. You're seeing these longer contracts. Do you think this is something that has changed in the minds of front office personnel and the way that they're handing out these contracts? Does it have something to do? Is it directly affected with how the CBA is? The new CBA has changed how they're thinking and what the tax restraints are with the different thresholds. But curious as to why you think these longer deals are happening more consistently now.
I definitely think it has a lot to do with tax purposes. So if you're stretching out, so what did Correa get? 13? Am I right? 13 or 11?
13.
13. And he got $350 million. So like the teams are able to, cut down a little bit on the AAV, and you're able to, in some cases, avoid higher luxury tax thresholds.
Yep.
I think a lot of it has to do with that. And then in some cases, like I've just had a conversation with a front office executive about this this past weekend. A lot of the times, teams, like I was saying earlier in the interview, like if they get, in Judge's case, if the Yankees get like 6 really really good years, then they'll just worry about the rest of the contract at a later date. It's a lot of the times with these big contracts, these teams are trying to win now. The Yankees are wanting to win now. The Phillies want to win now. The Giants still have some moves to make, but obviously like they're trending toward like wanting to win now. So these teams just have to get something done, and then they'll worry about the consequences in 8-9 years. In like Trey Turner's case, for example, they'll worry about that at that point. Maybe they go down the route where they DFA a guy and they eat the rest of the contract. But I think a lot of these teams are operating under the mindset of like, we want to win a championship. Like for the Mets, for example, their payroll is like $1 billion. They'll just worry about the consequences later on, and in the meantime, everything that we're trying to do now is about winning a title. So I think for these teams, I think one of the primary objectives with it is trying to lower the AAV, so your luxury tax commitment is lower, and then worrying about the rest later.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely, the first 4 or 5 years you need to get a championship out of that first four. If you can get a championship out of that first 4 or 5 years of any of these contracts, the back end of it is a much easier pill to swallow. But in order to get that 4 to 5 year window opened with a highly competitive team, you have to pay for, at this point, the way that the market is dictated, 9, 10, 11 plus years. And now you're playing the Bobby Bonilla game of, spreading this thing out. But it also, like you said, it attacks the AAV. Ilya just dropped me a note that Carlos Correa's AAV, because of the 13-year deal, is only 26.9. So
that's great for the Giants.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it is, right. Until they're paying that, in 10 years, and they have to deal with it. So it's a matter of getting the championship and really going in. And that's what's crazy to me. And when you're looking at all these big contracts and understanding that you have to win in the first half of that contract, even before that, you still have to double down. You almost have to double down and spend even more money then, so that the team is reflective of a championship caliber team in those first 4 to 5 years, but yet you're paying for the largest portion of it for 10, 12. It's not great economics, especially, with the chances of winning are still relatively low, but it's definitely a big risk. And a lot of these guys are now, that's what it's taking to sign them. I mean, these guys the majority of them are now signing these very long-term deals. And I know there's opt-outs in some of them. Boris has been putting opt-outs in some of these deals so that they haven't, like Correa had an opportunity to hit it twice. Like, he did very well. But yeah, do you see more of this trend of the long-term deals continuing on, or because we saw a little bit of the opposite too, even when, I know he's not playing, but Trevor Bauer, or we saw some of the older pitchers, these guys are coming in almost like mercenary contracts, like old Darrell Rivas contracts, where you're just going out with, short-term high AAV. That's the complete flip side of what we're seeing.
I don't think it's going away. I don't think the long-term deals are going away anytime soon. I'm very interested to see what happens next offseason when Ohtani is a free agent. If people think 9,360 for Judge is crazy, I'm very interested to see what Ohtani ends up getting, because he pitches at a Cy Young level and he's obviously an MVP candidate at the plate. So I don't think that these long-term deals are going away anytime soon. Maybe a player like what Correa did last year with the Twins and sign a 1-year bloated deal, and then he hits free agency, the following offseason. But I think players want security most of the time, and if you have 11 guaranteed years in some cases, like Turner and Bogarts with the Padres, Harper with the Phillies, like, having security for that long of a time is very, very comforting sometimes. Sure. Because, like, if you get hit by a bus, you're still getting paid for the next 13, 12, 11 years or whatever it is. So I think sometimes agents and players value long-term security over the higher dollar amount per year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
Even the Braves, you look at the Braves, they took a similar approach to this, but they're targeting guys who are still in arbitration, younger guys who are, will have another opportunity when they get into their, I think some of them in their late 20s, early 30s for another contract, but they're essentially buying out their arbitration years and securing them for an additional 4 to 5. I mean, the Braves have the ability to compete now with these young guys for 5-6 years. Their window is huge. It's a big window because they can also add higher priced free agents, guys who are more veteran players, but they have this nucleus of guys that they wrapped up and really secured with these longer deals. So yeah, smart baseball, smart management that they're doing over there too.
It's a good point you mentioned with the Braves, because before I was covering the Yankees, I was living in Atlanta for the past 8 years. Okay. But so a lot of my friends are Braves fans, and a lot of them were like asking, like, why would these players, Acuna is getting like $100 million over the lifetime of his contract, and he's obviously one of the better players in the league. Like, why would Acuna take $100 million, or why would Ozzy Albies? I think he's getting like around 50, or Michael Harris is getting 72. Like, why are these players doing this? Like they would ask. Part of it is because, again, like what I was just saying, it's the security. Like, you don't know if if I'm a player and I just had a great year and the Braves want to give me $100 million, that's generational wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could possibly get more money if you waited, but again, if you have a debilitating injury or your production just falls off a cliff or whatever it might be, in Acuna's case, like he tore his ACL or whatever, and like who if he didn't bounce back and wasn't the same player, is he going to get the money that he would have gotten when he signed? Who knows? So a lot of the times, like, these players also realize that it's never a guarantee that you're going to perform at the same level that the contract that is sitting in front of you says $100 million, because who knows if that's going to be there when your arbitration is over in 5 years. So I think it's probably a case by case basis, but a lot of the times, again, I think a lot of it has to do with I have guaranteed security for the length of my contract.
Yeah, and kudos to the front office guys who, especially with the Braves, who are reading that situation, understand that three of those players, at least three of those players, there might be more that I'm missing in my head, but would be open to such a contract, because that's not an easy conversation to have, I think, especially with when agents get involved, because they understand what's happening there. So you have to have that good relationship and be able to really facilitate those conversations. Because right, it changes not only the player but a lot of the people around them. All right, before we get out of here, Chris, really do appreciate again, man, you coming on and sharing your insight on these things. Carlos Rodon, still very much rumored to be the next guy to hopefully drop for the Yankees. What's the latest that you're hearing? Where it seems like it's a good fit and it's a matter of them just figuring it out. But how close do you think it is?
I've been led to believe that when it's all said and done, that Carlos will be a Yankee. I definitely think that it's going to happen at some point. When, I have no idea. What I was told this past weekend is the Yankees didn't want to meet Carlos and Boris, who's his agent, at 7 years, which is what Carlos is looking for. The Yankees would prefer if it was a 5-year deal or even a 4-year deal in an ideal world, which is probably not going to happen. But so there's obviously a difference there that they have to cover, whether it's a 5-year deal and an option for a 6th year, whether it's just 6 years straight up. I just don't know if the Yankees are going to be very comfortable at 7 years. I know they want him, and maybe they just decide, whatever. Like in the same instance as Judge, they go to 9 years. Did they want to go to 9 years? No, they didn't want to go to 9 years, but they had to do it. I don't think it's the same case just because of what Judge means to the Yankees, and you're bringing someone in from the outside. He has a lengthy injury history. I think there's certainly risk involved with bringing him in. He's been great the past 2 years, but if you look at just everything that he went through prior to those 2 years, it's not very encouraging for long term. But with that being said, he's been simply one of the best pitchers in baseball over the past 2 years. If you want to put him in the Garrett Cole category, like, he's up there, like, just from pure statistics. So I think he would certainly fit in with the Yankees. I think they want to get something done. I know they want to get something done. It's just a matter of, like, are the Yankees actually willing to meet Boris's and Rodon's asking price? And that's where the negotiation is right now. I do think when it's all said and done, they will both agree. I've been told that Carlos wants to be a Yankee, but he also wants to be paid as such. There are other teams who are involved. Now that Minnesota has lost out, I know they were interested even with chasing Correa, but now that that's off the board, maybe they put more resources in trying to get an ace for their staff. I've heard the Cardinals have been involved. So there are other teams involved, but when it's all said and done, I do think that he'll be a Yankee. I just don't know when.
Well, that's good. I hope so too. I think he's a very good pitcher. He fits what they need. We don't know what Montas is going to be. He could be,
Yep.
if he's the guy that came over and is damaged goods, then obviously we don't know what he's going to be with an off season coming into camp. So I'm optimistic in how he can be, but there's definitely smoke with him as far as the injuries go. And that's a bad look.
Yeah,
it's a bad look considering how they got him, when they got him, and when his injuries were, prevalent as well. It's a bad look. So they need to lock up the top of that pitching staff.
And I asked the executive I was speaking with, like, is starting pitching like really like a big need? Like, why would you commit $200 million to Carlos? And what he was saying was exactly what you're saying. Like, they don't know if Frankie is going to be the Frankie that he was in Oakland.
Crazy.
What they saw this year was concerning. They're still concerned. Severino, like, who knows when he's going to be able to give you, hell, even like 25 starts a year. That hasn't been done in a few years. They definitely wonder about Nestor and if he's going to be able to repeat similar production and performance. Hasn't really done it before in his career, but he was obviously incredible this past season. So they do have, some concerns with just the state of their rotation. I think it's a good rotation, but again, if you can add someone like Rodon to the mix and pair him with Cole at the top of your rotation, it alleviates the stress of the other guys. Like if Severino can give you 25 starts and when he's healthy, he's obviously got number one stuff. And then if Nestor repeats, you have him as your number 4 guy or even number 3 guy. And if you get similar production, that's incredible. And again, if Frankie is the Frankie that they thought they were getting from Oakland, and you have him as your number 5, we're talking about the Yankees having one of the best rotations in all of baseball. So that is the thinking behind, trying to get someone of Carlos's status rather than like going out and signing someone like Correa or Dansby, because they do believe in their young prospects.
Yeah. Or even the backup options that we're hearing. I think Heyman was floating out Evaldi as a backup plan. That will not sit well with many Yankee fans. I can promise you that.
No, it definitely won't. It certainly won't. And I also think like if the fallback option is Evaldi, you might as well have just kept Tyone at least given him the qualifying offer. And if he left, then so be it. You have at least some sort of compensation. So right. I think once they decided that Carlos was their guy, like it's kind of similar to the Judge thing. Like now Carlos knows that he has some leverage because of how badly like the Yankees want him. So I think I think in the end he will be a Yankee. It's just a matter of when and how that process ends up unfolding.
You mentioned the young guys at shortstop. We have a whole offseason, I think, to talk about them and speculate a little bit more. Left field is probably the one big area that the Yankees still need to address. Benintendi came in at the deadline, obviously didn't stay healthy, but I think was the right type of player. It was the right fit for what they needed. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. Sometimes that happens. His contract and the market for him probably set by Nimmo, which is a similar player to Benintendi, and I think was probably an option for the Yankees before he had signed with the Mets. But what do you see happening in left field? Do you think Benintendi is going to be too rich of a contract for them to go after? Because again, I just go back to the fit. The fit is right. Like I like the player. I like how he fits into this lineup. I like how he fits into this team. I'm just wondering if he's going to be too much of a commitment for this Yankees team, for this Yankees front office to commit to the guy like that.
Yeah, they definitely want to bring back Benintendi. They realize that they need more contact hitting. They were missing Benintendi and DJ LeMahieu in the playoffs. They do believe and this is both publicly and privately, it's not lip service. They do feel like they would have been a different team if both of those guys were healthy in the playoffs.
I agree with that.
Obviously, we'll never know.
I think we've seen lip service from these guys. We've seen lip service for the past 3 years. We've seen lip service. This year, it was the same thing, but it was actually right. It was actually true this time. Like if they had stayed healthy on paper, they were a much better team. The whole Montas situation, I think, was completely botched based on the injuries of last year. I mean, I scratched my head looking with what they saw, not expecting an injury to happen. But if you look at the guys that they brought over, like, I thought the deadline was successful. I thought they did what they needed to do. They brought guys on, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out with health and some other options. So I'm glad that
I agree.
It's mutual. I'm glad it's mutual, and they're talking about bringing Benintendi back. Are you hearing that from Yankees? You're hearing like a positive outlook from the Yankees front office around Benintendi specifically?
I don't know about positive. I mean, I think they are, what's the word I'm looking for? I think they're encouraged about bringing him back.
Cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. I think that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, like, they do want to bring him back. They do think that the fit is right. Some of these contracts, like, again, it could get expensive. I don't know if, like, they would be willing to give Benintendi like 5 years, $100 million. But if they want him back that badly, it's the Yankees, and they can afford to do so. I just don't know if they want to do it that badly. But I know they would like to bring him back. I think he's one of those guys. It's probably going to have to take the right price. He's not someone that they're just going to be like, here's $150 million. Like, we love Andrew Benintendi. It's just not going to work like that.
Yeah.
If he doesn't come back, I think they would be comfortable with Oswaldo Cabrera getting an everyday role. I know they really love him, especially, like, all the scouting guys think that this guy's makeup is excellent. It's just a matter of, like, getting him more professional experience. Like, this guy wasn't playing the outfield in the minor leagues, and he came in and was a stud, especially in right field. Left field, it was we saw a little bit of like, this guy doesn't look like he's played that much. I mean, he made some good plays, but
you could tell he didn't have the reps in left field. You could just tell he didn't have the intuition the same way you felt in right. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I think they would be fine with it. It's not ideal. And then I think the third option would be someone like Michael Conforto, taking a risk there. Obviously, he missed all of last season with shoulder surgery. I've heard that it's possible, like, he could get a 2-year deal with the second year being an option. But Plan A has always been bring back Benintendi. They want to bring him back, and they view him as someone who could be the leadoff hitter, could be the number 2 hole hitter, and that's the kind of player that the Yankees need right now. They need more contact hitters, and Benintendi is one of the best ones in the game.
Cool. I love that. I'm glad you're hearing the same things that I want to hear. So that's good. That's good, man. Chris, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Welcome to the beat. I know you came on later in the season, but welcome. You're a Bronx guy, but yeah, man, glad to see you here, and looking forward to reading more stuff. You had mentioned something. Quickly talk. I know if you want to tease an article coming up. You mentioned that you're going to be talking with Judge's hitting coach, so I'm excited to read that.
Yeah, speaking with Judge's hitting coach, really interested in just hearing the path that Judge took to become the best hitter in baseball, probably the best hitter since Barry Bonds. Obviously, one of the best seasons that we've seen in recent modern baseball history. I'm just interested in hearing, like, the changes that he's made with his routine, how he's become an everyday player, which is something that was a big concern for a lot of people, the Yankees people included. I know fans for sure.
He was striking out a 50% clip in 2016 coming up. I mean, he made a dramatic change in his swing, and it's funny that you mentioned the word path, because that was a lot of it. His path, his swing path is just the whole thing. I mean, you'll definitely get a lot of this coming from talking with him, but it's interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and now he's like a 315 hitter. I mean, he's not just a home run guy. Like, he's a really, really overall just incredible hitter. So I'm interested in hearing what he has to say. I'm not sure when that story will come out, but sometime soon.
Great. Well, look forward to reading it when it does come out. Chris, again, thanks, man, for coming on. Everybody, if you want to follow Chris, he's on Twitter at Chris Kirschner, KIRSCHNER. Chris, thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Appreciate you guys.